Nobody ever sat you down and taught you how to feel desire. It just arrived. One day it wasn't there, and then, seemingly overnight, it was. You didn't read a manual, nobody gave you a lesson, and yet your body knew exactly what to do. That should strike you as strange. Almost every complex skill you have, you had to learn, painstakingly, from someone else. Walking took months of practice. Talking took years. But this just switched on. So where did it actually come from? And how much of it did humans really understand, even after it switched on? Let's start with the part that isn't a mystery at all. Puberty. Somewhere around adolescence, your body begins flooding itself with hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and almost overnight, desire and attraction appear, fully formed, with no instruction required. Nobody teaches a teenager how to feel attraction. It simply activates, the same way hunger activates, the same way thirst activates. Your body doesn't need a manual for those either. This is the first piece of the puzzle, and it's the most straightforward one. The drive itself is not learned. It's wired in, coded across millions of years of evolution, installed before you were even born, waiting for a hormonal signal to switch it on. But here's where it gets more interesting. It's not just the desire that's built in. Much of the basic mechanics are too. Researchers studying primates have found something remarkable. Animals raised in complete isolation, with zero exposure to others of their species, zero opportunity to watch or learn courtship behavior, still display recognizable mating instincts. Nobody showed them. Nobody could have. And yet the behavior emerged anyway, hardwired into the nervous system, like a subroutine waiting to run. Now, humans aren't quite that simple. We're intensely social animals, and social learning does shape and refine how these instincts get expressed. Watching others, absorbing cultural norms, picking up on subtle social cues, all of that adds a layer on top of the raw biology. But the base instinct underneath? That part doesn't need a teacher. It was already there, running quietly in the background, long before culture ever touched it. So if the drive is instinctual, and the basic mechanics are largely instinctual too, what exactly did humans actually have to figure out? This is where the story takes a genuinely strange turn, because there's a difference between knowing how to do something and understanding why it matters. And for most of human history, that second part was almost completely missing. Picture this. You have sex. Nothing visibly happens. No immediate result. No signal. And then, 9 months later, a baby arrives. 9 months. Think about how long that actually is. That's not a same-day connection. That's not even a same-week connection. That's the length of time it takes for entire seasons to change, for crops to be planted and harvested, for the moon to cycle through its phases roughly 9 separate times. For most of human history, without calendars, without writing, without any formal system for tracking causes across such a massive gap, that connection was almost invisible. And here's the thing. It's easy to assume everyone must have eventually just figured it out, obviously. It seems so basic to us now. But anthropological research says otherwise. In the early 20th century, anthropologist Bronis A.W. Malinowski spent years living among the Trobriand Islanders, a society in the Pacific largely untouched by outside influence at the time. And what he documented was startling. The Trobrianders did not credit sexual intercourse as the cause of pregnancy at all. Instead, they believed that spirits, ancestral beings, entered a woman's body and became the child growing inside her. Sex was understood as something pleasurable, something social, something deeply woven into relationships, but not as the biological trigger for new life. That connection simply wasn't part of their understanding of how the world worked. Sit with that for a second. An entire functioning society, with complex social structures, elaborate rituals, sophisticated systems of kinship and law, and one of the most basic facts of human reproduction, something we now teach children in a single sentence, simply wasn't part of their worldview, and there's something almost humbling in that. We tend to imagine our ancestors as either primitive and clueless, or, alternatively, as somehow secretly knowing everything we know now, just without the technology to prove it. The truth sits somewhere stranger than either of those. They weren't clueless. They built complex societies, sophisticated relationships, entire systems of family and inheritance and belonging. They just hadn't yet closed the gap between an action and its distant consequence, because nothing in their daily experience made that gap obvious to close. You, on the other hand, know exactly how it works. You learned it, probably, in a single conversation or a single lesson at some point in your childhood. A fact that took our species an almost unbelievable amount of time to piece together. Now takes you about 10 seconds to explain to someone else. So the next time something in your body just happens, without instruction, without a manual, without anyone teaching you how, remember that you're running on two completely different systems at once. One installed by evolution, ancient, silent, and instinctual. The other built by culture, slowly, imperfectly, generation by generation, until it finally caught up to what your body already knew. Nobody ever sat you down and taught you how to feel desire, but somebody, somewhere, eventually had to teach the world what that desire actually meant.